Okay, so welcome to this interview. I want to thank you very much for doing this with me today. We're here to talk about who you are, what we're doing, and what your role is in the Windsor scene, what you do for some of the bands and the venues and things like that. So I think we should just start from the very beginning. Could you kind of tell me about where you first started out? Where'd you grow up, first of all?
Actually, thanks for coming down to Chatham. That's actually where I grew up. So I've been born and raised Chatham. Moved to Windsor like 4 years ago or so. Tried to become a personal trainer there, but that kind of failed me. But when I was working there, I kind of knew a girl that I was working with and asked her about the Windsor music scene, what was going on. Totally brand new, didn't know anything. She directed me to Fog Lounge, so I ended up going to meet Tom one day, Tom Lucier, and we kind of just got discussing the different venues around town. I didn't take too much of it right then. It probably was about 4 or 5 months later that I got this like announcement that the Rondo was opening up. I begged and begged and begged, got into bartending, and then eventually Tom brought up to me about helping book bands. And it wasn't anything that I had even put any kind of thought into at the time. Didn't think of it at all. I just thought I'd be happy bartending kind of thing. But that definitely ignited something in me. So I had a couple shows at Rondo, and then I decided to start my own little business called Happy Little Crowd Productions. So that's kind of been going the last year and a half or so.
So this was around your time at Rondo?
Yeah. So okay. About 2 years ago, I had a couple shows. Unfortunately, Rondo had closed. So then Josh Olson at TBX asked me if I wanted to come over and do some bartending there and book some shows, and it just seemed like a great fit. So I started the Happy Little Crowd Productions thing there. They had a great punk scene going on, hardcore scene. Tyson did all of his shows there. So I kind of started bringing like a more indie psych synth kind of vibe to town, and that was going over really well. Spent about 9 months there or so, I'm gonna say, bartending, and then unfortunately it had to close.
Well, I'm not sure what would be in place that the city could do. I mean, anything would help. A lot would be the actual people, like more people coming out to support who say they want to, and that's the biggest thing I would think.
So could you tell me about Happy Little Crowd Productions? What's the aesthetic of it, and where do you want to take it into the future, because it's fairly recent?
So I started it March 13th actually, of 2018. Ideally I had this big dream that I wanted to open a venue, but I then realized I was pretty broke, so I couldn't do that.
For now.
Yeah, good key point. For now, yeah. So I just thought, like, what better way to get involved than to bring live music to town? I definitely know growing up that live music is kind of what kept me alive, kind of kept me sane. So yeah, it's just kind of my way of giving back to more of like the mental health angle in town, of like getting people just outside of their own minds, even if it's just for 2 hours once a month or whatever, however that many times they can come out. Definitely shot really big out of the gate, but couldn't turn it up out. Don't know if you've heard of the band called Washed Out, but they did the theme song for Portlandia, which is on Netflix. So that was the first show that we did officially through there. I had Kyle Thayer, who helped me out a lot with that, so I always have to thank him for that. Without him, that show would not have happened. But that was like the big one. So we had about 250 people out to that. That was at the Walkerville Theatre. And that was just enough to start catching attention, where we could start doing some smaller shows, bringing more of like a regular scheduled thing to town. So it's allowed it to branch out now. Where do I see it going? Hopefully just continuing that pace. I do have things going on right now where I think I might be expanding to London at Call the Office. Maybe I'm speaking too soon, but I don't think so. But the idea with that is like now if I can get bands playing in London and in Windsor, it kind of might entice more bands to come this way if you can get them 2 shows within 100 miles of each other.
So recently, you did have a very notable group come into town, Show Me the Body,
Oh, yeah,
and they were
yeah.
supported by a few other bands. So could you kind of talk about that show a little bit?
That was a crazy show. It's been an agency that I've been trying to work with. There's a lot of bands on that label that I want to bring to town. So shows like that really go a long way in getting an agency to trust a promoter in that way. So yeah, it was a great show. We had Psychic Void, who just released an EP this past Friday, which is amazing. Oh, it's just amazing. I love those guys. Yeah, Show Me the Body, they were just absolutely amazing. That show, I don't know, it's hard to explain how energetic it was. It's typically out of my vibe. If anybody's been to my shows, I usually do a little more synth rock, acid rock stuff. So this was definitely a lot more jumping around than usual for me. But I'm still listening to them, and it was great.
And the crowd was good, you're saying?
Oh yeah, the crowd was jumping around, loved it. We had people coming from Detroit and pretty much all over for
So
the
from
show.
the States as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Does that happen often, you see? Like, do you see
I'm-
people coming over from the
I'm
States?
starting to notice that actually, that is happening. I do like market over there a little bit more because that's kind of a goal of mine, is to connect the cities a little bit more in the sense that we are just a river away. So if you have a passport, why not go to a show there? Why not come here for a show? We're pretty much the same city in a roundabout way. Lots of differences, but a lot of similarities. So.
Because there is the argument that, you know, why would someone want to go see some bands in Windsor that they may not have ever heard of before when they can go to Detroit to like St. Andrews or something and see like a bigger name kind of band, you know? Like, do you think that's a mentality that people have?
I think there's definitely that crowd that it kind of just always goes and checks out the bands that they know. But if you're somebody that likes to dive deeper, definitely makes sense to hit up both sides of the border. There's always going to be that first time that you heard your favorite band, and it's true. Like the first time you heard your favorite band's song is the first time you heard their song. So give a band a chance.
So there was Rondo that closed, Windsor Beer Exchange recently closed its doors. And there were many other venues. I know you weren't in Windsor for a long time to necessarily remember. I mean, I wasn't even around to remember, but I do know that there were a lot more venues throughout the years that opened for a few years, maybe even less than that, closed down, new ones pop up, closed down. There was Coach and Horses as a notable example, for example, right? Do you have maybe, you know, you work with bands and you've kind of seen a little bit of the music scene, so do you know why this kind of stuff happens? What's a pivotal cause for some of these venues shutting down?
I think there's a lot of factors involved. One definitely comes from making sure, like as a venue, that you have all of your finances kind of figured out, that rent is in control. I think something that maybe we could try in Windsor someday is like adding a restaurant vibe inside the venue. So making sure that maybe there's like a side hustle going on so that you're not just relying on live music. Get off the couch, get out there, check some new music out, press play on something. Venue owners, listening to your customer base, staying on top of what's going on right now in the music scene, like what people are really digging. Again, setting yourself up for success as a venue owner. Working together is a key thing. Like, we're a smaller community. It takes a lot to even compete with Detroit or anything. Like, even if we don't have to compete with Detroit, but just there's only so many people in Windsor. There's 250,000, give or take, in that ballpark. So instead of like working against each other, I think we could do a lot better job of working with each other and just building each other up.
You mentioned landlords as well. Do you think that's a big element to this?
Oh, definitely. Like, there's a lot of, without mentioning numbers, I've seen some pretty hefty rent prices where, like, you almost wonder why the landlord decided to rent it out. Like, were you just waiting for a failure to happen? Like, did they do their homework, or are they just quickly wanting to sign a lease as a landlord, like, to get some money? So I think, like, yeah, we need to figure out a way to, like, not have all these landlords just buying up buildings for the sake of, like, turning them over in 3 or 4 years and gaining some sort of a ridiculous profit, or charging rent that is just absurd, that nobody could sustain. Charging a lot and then not caring. Like, they don't care about the building so much, per se. Like, I've definitely been in situations where that if the landlord would have fixed something, even just tweaked a little things, the business probably could have been saved, but maybe a little more ego on their end where they weren't willing to budge with anything. So there you go, the business went out of business.
Our underground music scene, where do you see it going? What direction do you see it going in the next maybe 5-10 years or so? Do you think that there's going to be more venues popping up? Do you think it's going to stay the same? Like, what's the direction here?
I think you'll probably see venues stay the same, but you'll probably see a lot more people doing do-it-yourself kind of things, like basement shows, combining things. Like, I know even in Windsor, an agent I work with, she does like wrestling and hardcore shows kind of together. So yeah, just combining different things, thinking outside of the box a little more. So it's not just a straight up 3 bands play, you go home kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see, but I don't think we'll be losing venues per se, but I don't know if we'll be gaining venues. I don't know.
I feel like we're in a gray area.
Yeah.
We're gaining and losing.
Yeah, it's just gonna kind of do its thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a yearning for this stuff.
Oh, definitely. Like, and one thing I learned, especially going to like music festivals and stuff, is I'm now definitely one of the older people there. So that anybody that thinks that younger people aren't paying attention to music, that's not true. Right? The younger people definitely love live music. They will come out. We just have to make sure that they hear about it, that they want, like, that they know that there's something going on.
Yeah, because there's examples even right now. There's Grimehouse.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? What do you feel? What do you feel right now? What do you feel?
What do you feel?
I feel an overcoming urge of fucking violence and speed and fucking alcohol abuse at this very moment. You need to get the fuck inside. Meat bingo is gonna fucking ruin your life.
I think it's a good time, but at the same time, it's also a little bit of like out of desperation in a way, because perhaps if there wasn't so little venues or spaces for groups to play, maybe Grimehouse wouldn't be in someone's house necessarily. It would be in a venue or kind of, it would have its own place. Do you know what I mean?
For it all to work, everybody has to like get a piece of the same pie money-wise. So like, as a promoter myself, I tend to lose money, but that's mainly because I don't get access to booze sales. So like, if I was a venue owner, that might come around. So I think maybe that's why people start doing their do-it-yourself kind of things, so that there's a little bit of money to be made if they're losing money paying the bands or paying the sound guy or whatever they have to do. I don't know, that's kind of the way I look at it too. It's just trying to minimize the expenses at that point.
You're okay with not making money?
I'm okay with not making money. I don't like losing money, which is kind of the regular thing right now, but yeah, as long as this kind of stays like sustainable, I don't mind it being a passion, hobby kind of thing. Music's important to me, so ideally, if I don't have to stay a server the rest of my life, all the better. But yeah, if I never make a dime per se, that's okay.
All right. I think that's a wrap.